How you going, people? Want to talk? I'm reading from the comments I get sometimes. Man, it's freaking freezing outside in this room. I usually have closed. I left the door open now, but it's still freaking nippy in here. I ought to go get a jacket. So if I'm shivering, that's why. Let's talk about securing a house for a warrant. Now, this is kind of mainly for maybe cops or new cops who haven't done a lot of warrants or haven't had to secure houses. But as a citizen, as a gun owner with these new freaking red, green, blue laws to come in and get your guns, I think this has some relevant information that you should know before you start challenging government, so to speak. So, look, I'm telling you what the law says, okay? So don't get mad at me because I'm telling you something that you don't want to hear. So when cops go for a warrant, if I'm at a house, in order to get a search warrant, I need to convince a judge and a DA a little bit that I'm going to find evidence of a crime in that house. So I can get a warrant for any crime, as long as I can show the judge that there's evidence of this crime in this house, and I believe there's evidence in there, and through my affidavit and my search warrant, I'm going to convince you that I know there's evidence and there's a likelihood of, and the law says a fair probability. That's a pretty low standard. A fair probability that I'm going to find evidence. So there's not a huge standard to get a warrant. So when I want to get a warrant, I have to know there's a crime, and then think there's evidence in there, and then be able to articulate to a judge and a DA why I think I'm going to find evidence in there. Not the end of the world. A lot of times you can get a search warrant for just about any police report. I can grab a police report, read it, and pretty much think there's evidence of a crime. If I think there's a DV, if a woman's in a hospital and says that she was hit with a baseball bat and she's got rawlings on the side of her head, I can pretty much get a warrant to go search that house for a bat that says rawlings because she was hit in the head, she says it's in a house. That's my probable cause. So it doesn't take, a lot of people think you have to have all this elaborate phone tap, wire tap, I got to get all. It doesn't take a whole lot of evidence to get a warrant. I just got to be able to say there's a crime and I think there's evidence of a crime where I want to search. Whether it's a car or whether it's a home, whether it's your a business center, whatever. So I'm reading in here on some of the case law that's kind of coming out, and this is the point of view. I tell people, if you want to understand the law and understand how courts rule, man, I'm telling you, point of view, Alameda County, great guy. I've talked to him, called him several times. He puts out this magazine, and I'm telling you, it's online. You can read it online. If you read this article, it comes out I think once a quarter. If you read this book, you would have such a better understanding of the law than probably 90% of the cops out there. Because cops don't really, we're always worried about other BS training. We got to go to this CPR and this training and this new baton technique and this new taser training and this new use of force, and we have ongoing continuing training we have to watch. So cops on their own don't like to do their own research. They kind of stay away from the courts and ruling and case law, and they just focus on my beat, my area, find drugs, write tickets, arrest DUIs. They get focused on that, and they're so busy fighting the administration, the public complaints, the lawyers, the judges. They don't really learn this. Well, if you're an investigator, you're working a lot of cases where you're in front of a lot of jury trials, you need to understand what the hell you're doing and why you're doing it, and you've got to be able to articulate it to the DA, the judge, and then articulate it to the jury so they don't think you're a freaking idiot and you're just out there being some cowboy. So, I mean, this was my Bible. I loved reading this. Every time it came out, I always picked up something new. So I was reading this, and again, I call the guy and he sends it to me. I get it in the mail once a quarter. So I'm reading this on securing a resident pending a search warrant. And there was a couple things in here that I thought stood out. One is, when I secure a place for a warrant, and people go, you can't come to my house if you don't have a warrant, get the hell out of here. I don't need a warrant to come in your house. And I know everybody's going to be pissed off about this and tell me I'm a bootleg jackhammer putting my boot on the keeping a man to whatever. I'm just telling you what the law says, people. Don't get mad at the messenger. I don't need a freaking warrant to come in your house. That against the Constitution. And, look, I'm telling you the freaking law. And I've done this several times, and it was legitimate. If I think there is evidence in your house, and I think there is a crime, and I have reason to believe, and it's not a large stretch, that people that commit crimes that have evidence, if they know the cops are coming and they know a search is imminent, they're going to destroy evidence. It's just, I mean, I don't have to sell that. That's just the way. Well, Rick, you're jumping to conclude you can't judge people. Well, that's because you're a freaking idiot. I can't judge people. I can say what's reasonable, what a reasonable person would do. And most reasonable criminals, let's see, I go to prison or I can flush this bag of dope down the toilet. Hit the flush button. I mean, most people are going to say, yeah, that's pretty reasonable. That's not a reach. You're not judging this poor guy with the coke unfairly. So it's reasonable that people will destroy evidence. If I want to get in your house and I think there's evidence in there and you're in your house and you tell me to pack sand and slam the door, I can kick your door, force entry, handcuff you, and stay in your house till I go get a warrant. And what people don't understand is I'm not entering your house to search. I'm entering it under exigency, and I know you guys hate that and you think it's horrible. You know what? Then start electing people that freaking will change the exigency rule. Because I'm telling you, within the law, exigency is an emergency that I think evidence is going to be destroyed, somebody's going to be hurt, there's some sort of emergency that I can get in. I do not need a warrant. I don't need your consent. I can go in. So, and you may not like it, but it's true. So if you end up like this dude who registered his guns online and the cops came knocking at his door, could they enter his house and secure it and go get a warrant? Maybe. If them butts coconuts, I don't know what they know. I don't know how articulate they are on facts. I don't know what they knew and why they went in there. I know me as an officer, if I have reason to believe that you have an unlawful weapon in your house, and I go to your house to seize that weapon, has evidence of a crime, and you don't let me in, I think I can get in, but it would be iffy for a weapon. And that's the point, kind of the big point that I'm trying to get here. When cops secure a house, well, let me get back to securing a house. There's two ways to secure a house. I can secure from the outside or from the inside. So it's a very low standard for me to surround your house with people and go, you ain't leaving. If I think that you have a stolen car engine in your house, and the serial number of that engine is stolen, and I have reason to believe, whatever my articulable response it is, I arrested a dude, a reliable informant, he told me he sold you the car and he was in your house 20 minutes ago, he's got grease on his hands, and when he left I picked him off on a traffic stop and he said, yeah, the engine's in there, it's the one where I stole the Mustang and he bought the engine and he gave me $500, it's in the house. I'm good to go. I can lock down your house. Now, can I kick your door and handcuff you under the pretense of exigence that I want to preserve evidence? That's going to be iffy. I don't think that's reasonable, because as a cop, I can't say, well, Your Honor, I was afraid he was going to destroy the engine, so I had to kick the door and get him out of there. I don't think that's going to fly. If it was a bag of dope, much easier to throw that in a toilet, flush it, now I've lost the evidence. So then I could sell that. But if I'm talking about a car engine, I don't think I'm going to be able to convince a judge, Your Honor, if I didn't enter that house, I was in fear he was going to destroy that engine. Well, that's because you're a freaking idiot. What's he going to do? Start filing it down within 2 hours and it'll be gone? He might destroy a serial number. He might hurt the engine. He might take the engine apart. He might try and hide the engine. But we're talking about a freaking engine. So the exigency, and people say, well, cops just make up exigency. We have to articulate what exigency, and was it reasonable? Is it reasonable that a guy can destroy an engine while you go get a warrant? No. Is it reasonable that they can load it in a truck and drive away? Yes. Therefore, it would be reasonable for cops to surround the house, and we surround the house because I was after a person, and we wanted to secure it till we went and got what was called a Stagel warrant because the guy didn't live there. And we surround the house with cops and go, nobody's leaving. And we ain't letting anybody in. So in case you call reinforcements, they ain't coming in the house and nobody's leaving. Was that an unlawful search and seizure? Did we have consent? Did we have a warrant? No, we didn't. Was it unlawful? No, it wasn't. And the courts ruled on situations like that is if cops cops limit their level of intrusion, they're more likely to win when it gets to court and gets to appeal. If cops go hot dog and don't limit and just go, you know what, I'm kicking the damn door, everybody on the ground, I'm taking a gunpoint, I'm handcuffing everybody, and I'm sticking in police cars till I get a warrant. Man, that doesn't play well for the courts. It's not reasonable. Why did you do that? What was the purpose? Because remember, when you're acting on exigency, it's for a reason. Save life, property, or prevent destruction of evidence. It's not to humiliate. It's not to avert the Fourth Amendment. It's not to do all these other things. It's to prevent destruction of evidence or keep somebody safe normally is what exigency falls under. So when you're telling cops what they can't do, and I got all these lawyers and people who's watched videos and think they're freaking experts, you have to be reasonable. So when you're dealing with cops, you're dealing with law, you want to make yourself appear reasonable, and you want to be able to articulate why what you did was reasonable and why what government did was not reasonable. As a cop, I want to be able to testify why I did what I did and why it was reasonable to me. And I can either come off like a freaking idiot or I can come off like, that makes sense, that sounds pretty reasonable, I believe this guy. So, if I secure a house on the outside, it's called a limited or less intrusion. Courts don't have a problem with that too much. They don't think it's that big of a deal if I put 4 cops around your house to say nobody comes in and nobody leaves. That's securing a house while I go get a warrant. That's one way to secure it. Would I want to do that if the people have in there a written suicide note that a guy made a person sign because he committed murder and now he wants to destroy that note? I can't leave a guy in a house if he could destroy paper, a document, dope, flush it down the toilet. All those things can be burnt and flushed down the toilet. And a good rule of thumb is if you can't flush the evidence down the toilet or burn it and destroy it, probably entering the house, kicking the door to secure it, isn't going to fly. If your evidence can be flushed down the toilet or you can say, I thought he was going to destroy it, I guess you could destroy it by eating it, but whatever. I mean, you know, if you kick a door because he's freaking making marijuana brownies and go, I thought he was going to eat the brownies, is that reasonable? It's reasonable that he can eat it, and if that's your only evidence, how did you know it was in the brownies, and how did... Again, it's all about articulation, and cops really lack on this because we're always in a hurry, we're always on a timeline, we always got a sergeant saying, dude, what's the holdup? You're tying up 4 officers out here, get that freaking warrant done. So cops take shortcuts and they... Look, I'm telling you, man, if you take the time it takes less time, you got to eat less crow. So... On warrants, if I'm going to a house because I think the guy has an illegal gun, can I secure the outside of the house so he can't leave with the gun? Yes. Can I kick the door under exigency that I thought he was going to destroy the gun? I don't think that's going to fly. Can I kick the door if I think he's going to arm himself and get loaded and start shooting at me? Maybe. I would have to articulate why I thought he was going to do that. If I open the door... and I go, how you doing? I'm Officer so-and-so. Your dumbass freaking registered an unlawful automatic weapon and 400 rounds of magazines or whatever, and you tried to register your freaking illegal grenades that you brought back from Vietnam because you're a freaking idiot, and I'm here to seize those things. I need you to step outside until we get a warrant. That's reasonable. If the guy says, fuck you, I'm going to blow your ass up and slams the door, hell yeah, I can go in. I don't need to wait for the warrant. Again, totality of circumstances is what drives me nuts about doing these videos, because I get these idiots that come here and comment, and they take one fact, and then they make a statement that everything else I said must be invalid because this one fact is wrong. That video I just did about where I'm getting all this heat because the guy was jaywalking, the cops followed him, the guy said screw the cops, fought with him, grabbed his taser and ended up getting shot. I got everybody saying he was killed for jaywalking. That's just absolutely absurd. And you can't have a reasonable discussion or try to articulate why that person's a freaking idiot, but people who don't know read that comment and go, man, that makes sense, man. You shouldn't be getting killed for jaywalking. That's right, that's bullshit. People shouldn't be getting killed for jaywalking. He wasn't killed for jaywalking. He was contacted and detained for a traffic offense. He ran, he resisted, he fought with the cops, and he grabbed their taser and was trying to tase them. That's why he was killed. But people will say, cops shot him for jaywalking. Well, that's because you're a freaking idiot. So, searching a house, man, I keep going off because there's every situation is so in-depth that people don't understand, cops are freaking idiots, they're just flat-foot. If you do your job right, you better be on your freaking, you better be like a midget at a urinal, always on your toes. Because if you're not, you're going to look like crap on a stand, you're going to eat crow, you're going to get a reputation that you do shitty police work, the DA's not going to file any of your arrests. Pretty soon they're going to get around, damn man, I don't know what the hell's wrong with this guy. DA won't file, the courts don't believe him, all his cases get overturned. You better know what the hell you're doing. So, or just do nothing like most cops do. Eat donuts, show up afterwards, draw the chalk line, call the detectives, let everybody else do the work, and don't do anything. I mean, there's plenty of cops out there that do that. Make it their whole career bragging about, I've never had to pull my gun, I've never had to write a search warrant, and I've never had to testify in front of a jury, and I've been a cop for 30 years. Well, that's because you didn't freaking do shit. But I digress. 2 ways to secure a house, from the inside or outside. If you're a cop, you better justify why you're doing the inside and not the outside. And what was your reason? How was it reasonable? And then once you go in, another thing that messes cops up is when we go in a house, I don't know why I brought this in, I haven't used it. When we go in a house and we do a protective sweep, we have to clear the house to make sure no one else is hiding that could either ambush us or destroy evidence. So we go in, we do what's called a protective sweep. Rick, that's illegal, that's not the Constitution. You can't be entering a house searching without a warrant. I'm telling you what the law says. You can get pissed off, whatever. I'm telling you. Law says I can kick your freaking door and search your freaking house for people that could destroy evidence or be a threat to me while I'm waiting to go get a warrant. But Rick, you don't have a warrant. No shit. That's why it's called an exigency. An emergency situation that defeated not having a warrant and not having consent. 3 ways to get in your house. Exigency, warrant, or consent. That's it. That's how government gets intrusion. Now, if you want to get to vehicles, they've kind of distorted and diluted that to where there's so many things. Now it's like, the vehicles can be moved, it can't be moved, it's in arm's reach, it's instant arrest, he's driving, it's obstruction, if he drives away, we'll lose. They've diluted a vehicle to where, unlawful search and seizure on a vehicle, I don't even think you can have an unlawful search on a vehicle. You can pretty much do any damn thing. But I digress. Houses. Search warrants. 3 ways somebody gets in your house. Exigency, warrant, consent. Exigency is an emergency, and there's different ways to secure a house while you're waiting it under exigency. You can secure from the outside or the inside. When you secure from the inside, you're authorized to do a protective sweep. I can look for people who can destroy evidence or ambush cops. So I can look in closets. Anywhere a person can hide, I can look. Where cops get in trouble, and CHP, I got to give them an example because they can freaking never, they don't have any concept of the law if it ain't writing a ticket or doing a freaking traffic accident. So when you use them for warrants and they come and help you, and they ran a task force for auto theft, so they didn't write a lot of warrants, but they came with us when we wrote warrants, and they were always on the entry team and screwing up scenes, not searching, missing people. And then they go in and we're supposed to be clearing, we make an entry on a house while we go get a warrant, and we're doing a protective sweep, meaning we're looking for people. It never felt if CHP was with us doing a freaking search, while we were clearing, they'd be like, hey man, I found this dope. Hey man, I found this over here. Hey man, here's a needle over here. Yo, dumbass. We are not searching for evidence. We are doing an emergency protective sweep for people. And we can't be searching without a warrant. So people misconfuse that when you enter a house, it's a search. It's a limited search for people that you can stop destroying evidence and secure so you're not going to get ambushed. It is not a search for evidence of a crime. And cops get confused on that, and when CHP used to pick shit up, it'd be like, dude, set that down. We aren't looking for evidence. we need to wait for a warrant and then we can find it. Even if it's in plain view. People go, well, Rick, you don't know what you're talking about. Plain view doctrine says if you're where you're supposed to be and you see it, you can seize it. Not when you're doing a protective sweep. The courts have ruled if you are really concerned about people destroying evidence and you have time to go find evidence, what you're doing is circumventing the warrant requirement and you're doing an unlawful search. And then they can question on whether or not they're going to seize the evidence that you found and searched. Now, you can get around that by under inevitable, what do they call it? I call it inevitable discovery. He called it something else in here. Independent source rule. And I don't know if they've changed inevitable discovery to independent source rule. If the courts are going to get rid of something because we found it when we didn't have a warrant, because some idiot went in there and started doing a search when we were supposed to be doing a protective sweep for people, and these terms matter. If he went in there to search, they're going to say, you know what? Defense attorney going to say, they did an off search. They didn't have a warrant. He went in, looked for dope, found dope, and seized dope. And the cop's going to say, well, I seized it under the plain sight doctrine. It was in plain view, therefore I can seize it. And I was authorized to be there for the protective sweep so I can seize the evidence. The courts have ruled, no. You're circumventing. You should not have been searching for dope. I don't care if it's in plain view. If you truly had independent evidence and probable cause to get a warrant, then you did not need to go in there and seize dope. Now, the problem with that is sometimes we would enter a house because a knucklehead ran in and we went in and grabbed it. Then we would see dope. And if the guy went on probation, we could seize the evidence under plain doctrine, but to search the house, we would have to get a warrant. And when you get a warrant, there's a leveling, a balance thing that, did you get the warrant because of what you found without a warrant? Or did you get the warrant on an independent source before you seized what you found when you unlawfully entered? It sounds a little complicated. It is complicated. It's crazy what cops have to worry about when we're doing things, which is why most cops don't get warrants. They don't mess with warrants. They freaking do what they need to do on the scene, and they go, screw it. Let the courts figure it out, let them go, and let all the crooks go. We don't care. We did our part. Well, Rick, they took an oath, and they shouldn't have. Look, I mean, I'm all for beating up dirty cops, but cops have, we are constantly trying to cover our ass from administration to the courts, to DAs, to prosecutors, to defense attorneys, to the crook's family that wants to sue us. I mean, it's just a constant battle. The media is always attacking us. The politicians attacked us, even though they freaking make the rules and they could stop all that. I mean, tomorrow, the legislators could go, we are doing away with exigency. If you don't have a warrant, you don't enter someone's house, period. We're doing away with it. They could do that. There would be repercussions and there would be situations to where, but look, search warrants, exigency, right to leave. On the cop side, I'm telling you, cops, cover your butt and make sure you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it and use the proper terms. A protective sweep is not a search. I've seen cops write warrants and they go, yeah, we kicked the door and did a search while we were getting a warrant. Man, that doesn't sound right. I know what you're talking about. But you're not doing a search. You did a protective sweep to secure a residence while you obtained a warrant on independent information that you already would have had the warrant. You weren't looking for evidence, you were looking for people. And that makes a difference when it gets to appeals courts, when the DA or the prosecutor or defense says, we want a suppression, and then the court rules, no, we're not suppressing that, and then they appeal it, and that court says, oh yeah, I agree with the judge. He was right. We're not appealing. And then they appeal it again, and that court overturns it, which is exactly one of the cases they point out in there, that it was overturned because they went, no. Your terminology is wrong. So anyway, you can't make a short video on a complex subject. Hopefully, when I do these videos, I'm creating more questions and I'm provoking that critical thinking on why things aren't easy, why cops make mistakes, why people think it's so easy and it's just a 1, 2, 3 sign here because they're used to dealing with cops on freaking traffic stops from the state police not doing anything but writing tickets. But when you get into good investigative police work and you get into search warrants and you get into high crimes, not freaking penny-ass marijuana, but when you start working on murders or attempted murders or good conspiracies where people are violent felons, you better know what you're doing. You better not miss a step. So anyway, search warrants, I don't know if I covered everything, but when I was reading that article, I thought it was kind of interesting. All right, we'll end that there.